I don't know, maybe.
Speaking of business athletes,
I was going to say, we got someone special sitting right here, patiently waiting to get introduced. Come on, baby.
That's it, Jory Jansen. I need no music. We need no more introduction other than the goat bleeding in the forest over there, the greatest of all time. Jory Jansen joining us here today. We are talking, and Shinko's rolling in there with you as well, Jory. We're going to talk today about nutrition periodization. Big words for Uncle Keith here this morning. John's like, I just fucking keep it simple, man. Eat when I work out, eat when I don't work out. All joking aside. But Jory, let's get into this idea of aligning your diet, aligning with how you eat with your training cycle, tackling something that often flies under the radar, and how addressing somebody's nutrition to match what you're doing can actually maximize results. Jory.
Yeah, periodization, you're right. It's like, why use big words? It catches attention, that's why.
Yes.
Sounds cool.
So periodization is really a nice word for saying have a plan for at the right time for what you're doing.
Yes.
And for the nutrition piece, it really does matter. It doesn't matter if you're a bodybuilder, a golfer, a triathlete, just trying to lift those kettlebells to gain strength or power, whatever you're working towards. How you're fueling your body at certain phases of your goal really does make a difference. So if you're in, I don't know, I was just working with about 40 young ladies last night. So my voice is a little shot. I was chatting with them. You're in season now, so you have to choose to fuel and hydrate different than when you're there are a bunch of hockey players and they need to now maintain strength. They don't have the time to build. So their protein intake is going to go up. The carbohydrate will go up around the training and the games. But in the off season, their protein is going to go up even higher and the carbohydrates will go down a little bit lower just to help make sure that they're getting the gains in power and strength, but not putting on too much so when they go into season, they're ready to go. So it really depends on where you're at of your program. So it does make a difference.
Johnny,
let me share something. Let me share something that's literally specific to me. So in my strength career, performance is everything. It's how much can you lift, or how many times can you lift in a set amount of time. And this was back quite some time ago, and we've learned a lot about nutrition since then. But all of us, we learned how our bodies responded the best in terms of existing in that world. And I know me personally, it was so much better in terms of my performance when I was eating almost primarily red meat, because the values of that red meat just gave my body the ability, or I guess you say that, whether it's the healing, whatever it is, there's so many elements of what that red meat did. I'm sure Jory can talk about the science, but with the red meat, I was performing noticeably. We're talking probably 10, maybe 15% better with red meat as my primary fuel source in terms of protein, forgive me. And it was an organic grass-fed, because I needed basically grass-fed brings a whole another slew of value into the equation. And I actually had a sponsor at that time. It was a grass-fed farm, and they would give me 50 pounds of ground beef every month. And when I got that, it was like, I couldn't believe the change in my performance, because now I was eating it all the time. As we were before, you go shopping, sometimes they don't have it. You're hodgepodging it together. Once I had that shit being delivered to my front door every month and I was eating that, I cannot explain the difference in my performance. Now, granted, this was extreme, like international strength. We're talking in the elite. I'm not saying that this is what everybody has to do, but for me, the red meat across the board was a game changer.
I want to sprinkle in something real quick before we pass it back to Jory. When I was in college, and John mentioned the red meat thing, but during the season, we ate so much more, like significantly more. And like pregame meal was insane. We had pasta, potatoes, chicken, steak. And so when it comes to performance, you absolutely have to eat. And I want to tie this into Gen Pop Fitness. I had a conversation with one of my clients yesterday, and who's trying to avoid carbs. And I'm like, no, you're working out more now. Your metabolism's getting faster. You're getting stronger. You're just doing way more. So you have to eat more. That's not going to make you fatter. So don't be scared to eat more when it comes to performance and when you're doing more. So I just wanted to add that in. Jory, I know you can make it sound better than that, but I just wanted to relate it for some folks.
No, that was beautiful. That's great. And I think people need to understand that periodization isn't just like for the season, it's for what's happening within your day. And so on a day off, you might switch up how that macronutrient profile looks versus a game day. If you're in a recovery day, but if tomorrow's game day, then recovery day is now preparing for performance. So you really need to look at the big picture of, are you trying to gain strength? Are you trying to maintain in this phase? Or what's your performance look like for tomorrow? And so it really does matter on how you time it out. The other part of periodization is periodizing your supplements. Some people don't understand that when you're trying to make sure you're getting the most of your workouts, sometimes when you're popping all those antioxidants, your vitamin C, E, those sort of things, they will interfere with what you're trying to gain out of that training phase. So you really want to make sure that you're looking at, am I traveling a lot? Am I doing intense training? Then perhaps you would do that supplement thing. But if you are trying to gain more muscle endurance in that phase, nix supplements, just eat the food, because there isn't the interference or blunting of the recovery that you want to get out of that training when you eat it from food. When you eat it from supplements, the science is saying, you know what, you're not going to get that recovery that you're looking for. So you're not going to adapt from that training.
On that level too, Jory, like what I was talking about with me eating all this grass-fed beef, what I discovered was, for what I was doing, it was my superfood. Everybody has different formulas in terms of what's going to be best for them. And so obviously in a periodization and understanding how to work nutrition, when people start to understand these foods affect me in this way, these foods affect me in this way, talk a little bit about how powerful that could be in the equation.
Yeah, if I'm understanding your question correctly, so you do need to take a look at how foods do react with you. So it makes sense to have, let's say, the red meat, because it is the most bioavailable form of iron. What does iron do? Iron helps with oxygen flow. What does oxygen do in the blood? It gives you that clarity, that energy, right? So it makes sense. I like the grass-fed idea because it's going to give you the extra omegas. You can get your omegas from your grass-fed animal sources. It doesn't have to be just fish or just your chia seeds, right? I think it's looking at that and combining your foods helps hit those targets. So if you're only eating one food option, you're missing out on everything else that we know and don't know about nutrition, right? I think it's really important to make sure that you are getting a variety of options and understanding what is the goal, though, from what you're training for. If you're training for, and it doesn't have to be endurance in terms of a triathlon, but just that cardiovascular phase of your training, you got to fuel that right. If you're but if you're training for strength versus trying to build muscle, you're going to have to support that in how you fuel. And so, just making sure that you understand what are you trying to get out of this particular phase of training. Or if you're playing rec volleyball, I don't know, like making sure that you are fueling to support the demands of what that training load is.
Jory Jansen dropping nuggets. Dude, today gold nuggets dropping today. I'm telling you, Jory, I know sometimes you and I chat, you're like, did I hit the marks? There are audience value. Today, Marty, Johnny, this is value today, man. Like, this is lots of great value today about people got to eat. If you're training in the gym, if you're doing something that's, you're putting your body under a stress load, what you're saying, Jory, is eat. And what you're saying, Nation, is not periodization eating more of these. No.
Here we go.
Here guys get that.
Get him, John.
If you look at, I'm gonna let Keith go with that. He's done that 2 other times. The pop is gone, But I just want to summarize this conversation, and Jory's brought it up a few times. If you didn't catch this, the main goal is understand what is your goal with your eating. Establish what you're trying to achieve. Or is it strength? Is it endurance? And then you build your nutrition based around what you're trying to achieve. So you can't just say, oh, this guy over here is doing this, I'm going to try that. Maybe his goal is different than yours. So you really got to understand what is the goal in your training, and then work backwards into your diet to build that nutrition so it's going to support what you're doing with your training.
Yeah, exactly. Nation, as Jory and John has said, nutritional alignment is a game changer. Find what works for you. Don't do what somebody else is doing just because you think they're doing it, right? Fuel your body, put the right nutrition in your body, and move forward from there. Jory, the weekend loop is around us. Any big plans for you and the family before we say goodbye to you?
Oh, and I think this weekend's a little bit of work, but that's okay. It happens.
Yes. There you go. Awesome. Listen, always enjoy having you in here. I want to maybe dig into a topic next week around intermittent fasting. Maybe that's something we're talking about nutrition periodization today. Let's talk a little bit about food windows and intermittent fasting, because I know people that's linked to longevity. Some people have strong opinions on it, but maybe, Jory, we can talk a little bit about that next week. How do you think about that?
I think we should, because some people shouldn't.
That's a great
some
topic.
people absolutely can.
So we're going to do that. Jory, of course, you guys know Jory's here every Monday, Wednesday, Friday with the protein break, always dropping knowledge for you guys. And the stats show on YouTube that this segment gets a lot of great hits and great views. So I appreciate that. And hey, Jory, you have a good one. Thanks for coming in. Have a great weekend. Don't work too hard.
Thank you, Jory.
All right.